let them fight with me. But not only did David hear the challenge of Goliath, David also witnessed the fear of the Israelites as they all ran from Goliath. The Bible says, in great fear. Y'all walking with me? To make a long story short, this young shepherd boy meets the challenge. Although King Saul offered great wealth to the man who kills Goliath, David does not do it for the wealth. Although King Saul offered his daughter in marriage along with family exemption from Israelite taxes, David does not do it to get a wife, nor does David do it for tax exclusion, but he does it because Goliath dared to defy the armies of the living God. To David, this was unacceptable. To David, this was not a challenge to run from or to hesitate in accepting. David tells King Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine, your servant, meaning him. David, I will go. And fight him. Y'all scared? I'll go. Saul objects because of David's age. And by comparison to Goliath, what Saul thought was David's inexperience in combat. Here in Saul's view was a young shepherd boy against a veteran warrior of war, and in Saul's view, David stood no chance. But David shares a testimony. He recalls to Saul how God had given him victory over a lion and a bear and protection of his father's sheep. And David tells Saul that the same God who had delivered him then will also deliver him now from the hand of Goliath. In essence, David was saying to Saul, who is this Philistine against the power? Y'all ain't got it yet. Of God. So Saul gives David his blessings, and Saul dresses David in his own personal royal armor. But this was not David, and so David pulls out Saul's armor, and David grabs what David was comfortable with. Look at your neighbor and tell him, here's a principle. Use what you're comfortable with. Don't try to dress up in somebody else's armor. Don't try to do it somebody else's way. Use what God gives you and do it with what God gives you to use. Look at your neighbor and say, you got to be yourself. People trying to mold you into their pattern. Have you walk in your shoes. But David tells Saul, that's not me. I can't use this. This is not me. Thus David picks up his shepherd's staff. And David selects 5 smooth stones from the water. It's in the book. He puts the stones in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, David approaches Goliath with confidence. Not fear, but with confidence. He had no fear, but David had faith, y'all, in God. And this is another principle. If you're going to have victory over your Goliath, you got to have faith in God. Tap your neighbor and say, not fear, but faith. You got to know that you cannot defeat your Goliaths without the help of God, and God honors faith, not fear, no matter what the challenge is, be the challenge physical, financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, relationship, or people. You can win with faith. 1 John 5:4 declares, for whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our, I ain't hooping today, even our faith. David had faith. And what David had, we got to have. We must have faith in God. Faith in God opens doors. Faith in God releases power. Faith in God enables the moving of mountainous situations. As faith in God pleases God. The Bible says without faith it's impossible to please God. But he who comes to God must first believe that God is and that God is rewarder. Diligently. If you don't take nothing else, write this down. Where there is faith in God, there is no fear of man or partnership with naysayers. Faith moves, even if it has to move by itself. Its confidence or validation does not come from man, but it comes through God. As David stood before Goliath, Goliath mocks David. And Goliath is angry that a boy with a sling and a few rocks is coming out against him. But no matter what Goliath says, no matter how Goliath looks, no matter who the gamblers were betting on, David tells Goliath, this day the Lord will deliver you over to me. And I will strike you down. And I'm going to cut off your head. Tell your neighbor, faith has no fear. And faith puts its trust in the Lord. The Israelite army feared Goliath, but not David. King Saul feared Goliath, but not David. David's brothers feared Goliath, but not David. David had faith in God. As a matter of fact, David's faith in God caused David to look at Goliath from a different perspective. I'm trying to help y'all today. While the Israelite army, King Saul and David's brothers peered upon a man of great size and strength, David had his eyes on God. And as such to David, Goliath was but a mere mortal, defiant, and all-powerful God. By comparison to David, there was no comparison. And I think here Paul learned from David as he writes in Romans 8:31, if God be for us, who then can be against us? Here's another principle. If we look at giant problems from a God perspective, we will see that God will fight with us. We will see that God will fight for us. And with God on our side, and as God as our guide, we'll never lose. Tell your neighbor, if you got God on your side, if you got God as your guide, you'll never lose. In proper perspective, not forgetting the sovereignty of God. In proper perspective, not forgetting the omnipotence of God. In proper perspective, not forgetting the protection and divine intervention of God. We will see, as David saw, that no man, no circumstance, no situation is bigger, stronger, or powerful than God. We will remember what the word tells us, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. Yes, Goliath is pretty tall. Yes, Goliath is pretty strong. He criticizes. He uses verbal abuse. And Goliath will threaten. But don't you waver and don't you doubt. The God that we serve is taller and stronger, and nothing is too hard for God.